I've laid it out a couple times on the show, and I'd like to hear your perspective. I forget how many wins and then we go to play UW-Waukesha like halfway through the season. Um, and then I kind of just I want to hear your story on kind of events that unfolded that night, because I've described it as being like a movie, and then I described the whole foul situation that led into some verbiage being used by someone else in power, and then obviously the other events that happened. So
Right. Um, First and foremost, the situation in Waukesha should have never happened.
yeah,
Um, I don't have a problem ever owning up to my responsibilities in an issue or in a situation. But at the same token, um, I don't back down, and that's one thing I always take to my grave. So the situation in Waukesha kind of shook out from the very beginning. Um, we might as well just get into the whole story,
yeah,
but Waukesha.
yeah. I'm curious. I want to hear what your perspective, because I've laid it out like every step of the way, and I'm sure you'll detail it in a second, but I've laid it out I had an interesting point of view because we were blowing this team out to start this game, and so I was sitting right behind you when events ended up transpiring. So I was there to witness it as well. So I kind of want to hear your perspective on it.
So that was my thing too. Was like we were once again, like you said, we came into the game being one of the best teams in the conference, undefeated. Waukesha had won the conference the year before. They weren't nearly as good as we were. They
Mm-hmm.
knew that, and we took care of them the first 10 minutes, 12 minutes of the game like we were supposed to. But then some situations began to occur. I still remember it like it was yesterday. Shout out Ben McDonald.
I yeah,
Uh,
yep,
but Ben had the referee was out of position. Ben had attempted to block a shot. After the referee called the foul from the opposite end or the opposite side of the court, Ben, as you and me both know, competitive, but he's a good guy. All he
yeah,
said to the referee was, "Oh, I almost got that." The referee took that as being, I guess, somewhat confrontational. So then Ben walks across the other side of the court, opposite of the referee, and he's talking to me. He puts his head down to cuss. And when he puts his head down to cuss, the referee gives him a technical because he said that Ben cussed at him. Well, he told when the referee goes to tell the bench, or excuse me, goes to tell the scores table, he's supposed to technically he's supposed to come tell the coach, this is why I'm giving that player the tech.
yeah,
Well, he totally ignored me. So when I asked him what he was giving him the technical for, he just ignored me, like walked past me like there was no respect. So my thing was, you kind of have to explain to me. I've done this, so although I look young, I've been coaching and played at the highest levels for years. I know what you can and cannot get away with. You have to
mm-hmm.
kind of explain to me what my players did wrong to automatically. And we got to remember, Ben had just checked in the game. He had probably been in the game maybe all of 2 minutes.
Yeah,
So you kind of got to explain that he didn't give him a warning. You kind of explain to me what he did wrong, and it snowballed from there. I guess I upset him by asking him to tell me why he gave him the technical. So he said, "Do you think I got to come talk to you?" And I told him, "Yeah, you do got to come talk to me, and you're gonna come talk to me with some kind of respect."
mm-hmm.
And then he rushed over to me. It was maybe about a foot away from my face, breathing all hard, mad, and was like, "Get back in your box." And then he used I took it as a derogatory slur. "Get back in your box," and then he pointed to the box. I think
And
I did an exemplary job of holding my composure.
I mean, yeah, he was throwing the word boy around in there
Thank
multiple
you.
times, and that's what
Yes.
I've been on record of saying, like, retelling the story just about exactly the same as you've retold it so far. So yeah, you're not wrong. It was absurd, and the only reason I know is because I was literally sitting behind you because we were busting them so bad that you had just pulled Jake, myself, and the rest of the starters.
Right.
And
And so
so
that was my thing. I grew up once again. I'm a black male from Iowa. I've been dealing with racism my entire life. Um, Sports is no place for racism. And so when he did that, I kept my composure. I think at halftime, when we went into halftime, I kind of told you guys, I don't know if we want to keep playing. And then you guys are kind of like, we haven't played since Christmas. I think this was January. We
mhm.
hadn't played for like a month and a half. So we were like, let's go back out and finish this game. Well, I went back out with the purpose of, let me find out what the referee's name is, so that after this game, I could take it to the commissioner and we can talk about why this occurred.
Yeah.
Well, Waukesha has a booster, and this is the part that we didn't want to get into. So in the programs, Waukesha had a booster club. No other well, there's some other programs, but a majority of the programs in that conference did not have a booster club, which means that they got extra money from fundraising and doing other things that went back into their program.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have is a budget. And so each team had a budget. Our budget wasn't much. And with that budget, you have to purchase basketballs, uniforms, and then you have to have a statistics program. The statistics program is what keeps your statistics, as well as it keeps the information of referees and whatnot. So at halftime, when I went to go get the statistics sheet, they told me they didn't have one. Waukesha chose not to use a statistics sheet. But if we remember, every player on Waukesha's basketball team had Nikes. They all had team Nikes.
Yeah.
So one of the things that the program or the athletic director or the coach gets to decide is how that budget is used and utilized.
Yeah.
They chose to skirt and use the funds for something else rather than get a statistics program, which means I can't get the referee's name, right?
Yeah.
So the game starts in the second half. He continues to ref the way he refs. And as the game ends, I simply asked him for his name. I said, what's your name? And he ignored me like he had done initially. And so I asked him again, and he told me, why don't I just go home? And then he walked out. Now I did the
I'll say this too before you get into the rest. He didn't just walk out. The three of them kind of booked it out of the gym. They kind of ran in a light jog, I should say, out of the gym and didn't shake hands with any of us.
And see, and that was the thing, is like, I'm the only one, I guess, who has the camera, the game filmed. After the game, you see me walk across the court to talk to him. And he's already started the light jog, but I just wanted to talk to him. And so I never changed my gait or my walk. I just followed him out the door. Now, that was my fault. As a basketball coach, we know better. But I followed him out the door because at this point, it was just like, I've taken enough disrespect. I just need your name, and I'm done with it. And so when we went out the door, that was what I told him, was like, I need your name. Not because I'm going to do anything else, but you'll never coach another UROC game again. There's one thing as a basketball coach I can do is we can request that certain referees not ref our games, right? So my thing was, I'm not going to sit here and try to take money out your mouth, but you'll never ref another one of our games. I'm going to request that. And I think that's what got his goal. And so we're outside, right outside the gym. And y'all know me. I pride myself on being cool. I even dress cool for the games. I don't sweat, right? And so when we got out there, he was still a little boisterous and belligerent. And he stepped to me to tell me, why don't I go home again? And my son happened to be at the game, and he was filming. So this is where messages and stories start to get diluted. It went from my son was a part of the basketball team, and he was one of the guys that jumped on him. But my son just happened to be up there filming the game. He happened to come out when he saw the referee approach me. And when he saw the referee approach me, he didn't like the manner. And it did look, if you were outsider looking in, it did look like the referee was walking up on me. And I had stepped back. I'm not going to lie, to push him. But when I stepped back, I had on dress shoes. I began to fall backwards. And when I began to fall backwards, what you see is the referee come out, or my son comes out. He sees the referee kind of standing over me, and he did what his son's supposed to do. He protected his father. Yeah. Put him on his back. And so from there, what happened was I took my son off the top of the referee, but then as people are coming out the door, I'm standing over the top of the referee. And me and my son look very much alike.
Yeah.
And so the next thing I heard was a lady yelled out, he just punched the referee. That story kind of escalated, and it went from I punched the referee, that we jumped on the referee. And really, in all honesty, the thing that happened was my son jumped on the referee, and then that fast, it was over with. Afterwards, and as y'all know, I kind of hung out. We stayed for about a half an hour to talk to the police. They never came. And so eventually I came and told y'all guys, we're going to go home. We had another hour and some change travel. And it was like a Wednesday. We had school the next day. So I was like, we're going to go home. We're going to head home. and they can talk to us later. And on the way home, the police called, and I had to go back up to the next day, and they booked me, and they told me they were totally indifferent to the boy remarks. They didn't see any issue with that at all.
Yeah, it's crazy to me.
Waukesha PD. I had to explain to them now, and this is in 100% disclosure. My wife is white.
Yeah.
My wife was there with me, and I had to explain to them, like when I told them how it transpired, they looked at me like, "Oh yeah," and so I had to explain to them like, well, that type of language when you're talking to a man of color it can be looked at as derogatory. They didn't understand it at all, and so fast forward. Me and my son actually had to go to court for it. I big respects to Rita, Ben McDonald, and Calvin Sims. They actually supported me while I was there. But I actually had to go through a court case. I was on NBC. My stuff made it to national news.
They used a highlight of me hitting a 3. I remember being very sad about it.
We were 7-0. We had one of the most diverse teams in the conference. We had great stories, and the only time we got on television ever was during that clip.
Yeah.
During that clip.
Yeah.
So we went through the whole court process, me and my son. I ended up pleading out to a lesser charge. My son pled out to battery. My son ended up serving 44 days in jail, and he had to pay the referee $5,000. I ended up serving 23 days in jail. And mine was half of that as well, as far as the restitution.
Okay, so we not to cut you out, we fast forward there a little bit. I want to kind of take that piece by piece. Because this is what, from my understanding, I was always very confused as to why the police never showed up, and then we leave, and then I'm hearing that they took witness accounts and shit after we left, which
right.
I think heavily skews, and I didn't know this about Waukesha. I learned a lot of things about Waukesha after the fact, and I have a friend of the show, Raymond Roberts, I believe he's from Waukesha, and he's done some speaking over there on these kind of issues and whatnot, and I didn't know that about that area, that it was so, for lack of a better term, openly okay with kind of that verbiage, being, sort of belligerent, calling a grown man of color a boy to his face and telling him to sit down. Like I don't know any other place where that's acceptable. But so I learned that after the fact, obviously. But so did they take, to your knowledge, did they take other people's accounts after we left then? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They took the accounts. What they used to kind of get us was the account of the 2 referees.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a young woman. There was a young woman who said that she didn't see me throw a punch, but they took the advice, or they took the testimony of the 2 referees.
Wow.
And of course the other referee.
Now this too, where again I hear, I get to just hear the stories because obviously we weren't really able to be in contact while this was going on. I heard that the referee had an issue where he thought it was you or your son trying to get back on him, and some lady had went to help him, and he had actually hurt some other lady. I don't know if that was true or not. So,
and this is the other part, is that at the time, people find things so hard to believe. So even when I told the policeman about him calling me boy, it seemed like he couldn't
comprehend it.
Yeah, it couldn't be believed. When we went out there, and as the situation was happening, the referee, he was on the ground. I mean, and I pull no shorts when I say this. He was on the ground, but people were coming out to help him. I had pulled my son off. People were coming out to help him, and he started he started punching people, like just random people, right?
Yeah.
And the people that came out to help him actually happened to be other people of color, but he was punching them.
Wow.
They never got their stories and never talked to them.
Wow.
But I mean, it kind of goes back to, I didn't know about So, and you know this, I moved to Wisconsin a couple of years before that, so I wasn't familiar with the area. The only areas where I've ever picked up, and I drove to the games, The only areas that where I ever had any type of issues were stops for speeding or
Yeah.
something like that was Sheboygan. We had our issue in Sheboygan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Waukesha, and then it's called that Toma lacrosse corridor.
Yeah.
And what I found out from being here now is that those areas are some of the most racially depressed places in Wisconsin, right? And
Yeah.
so
I remember
I
playing
had
in
issues
Sheboygan.
in each one of those.
Well, Sheboygan, that was the, if I
Police
remember
man.
correctly, they were calling us thugs and like screaming us off the court, like following us to our locker room, calling us
And they have
thugs.
a policeman come in
Yeah.
and escort us out, right?
Yeah. And this is, you know what blows my mind too, is that all this is going on at WCC basketball. That's what it was called, right? It was like the WCC or some shit.
Yes.
Like not even like, there is NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3. Then you have NJCAA, I think
Yep.
1, 2, and 3. And then you have NAIA, and then you have WCC. That's how far down on the totem pole we are, and this shit is going on.
Remember when I had that? I showed you guys.
You did.
Where
I
we were
remember.
at on that totem pole.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is where, we're at the lowest of the low. So it's like, at that level, the whole idea, and this was my biggest thing about the referee. At that level, the whole idea should be to have fun and to teach kids about basketball. Continue to teach them. So instead of coming to Ben, who Ben was a grown man, instead of coming to Ben like a grown man and telling him what he might have did wrong on that play, instead you baited him and gave him a technical. We're not trying to get these kids better. You're like trying to enforce punishment on a player, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to help these kids. So that was my biggest beef with the referee, but outside of the derogatory slur, was like, you're not here for the kids. You're just here to get your paycheck. And
Yeah.
that's not fair to y'all. You know what I'm saying?
And it's not worth it too to be a fucking WC. It's not worth the money, you know, to be a WCC ref if you're just doing it for the money. Like, it's not worth it. Yeah.
And then the thing was, I don't think he wasn't a good ref. So I'm gonna keep it all 100.
Yeah.
He wasn't a good ref. He was out of position when he made the call.
Yeah.
So from the beginning, and I've had other refs now look at the game and they were like, he was atrocious.
Yeah. Well, and prior to
no.
that, this is the part that I've mentioned multiple times when I've retold the story, is that we were beating this team by like 18, 20 points or something like that. And then, you know, the starters get pulled out, and then they called 11 fouls. It was 11-0, the foul calls. And then the tech. So it was like literally the whole, like, let's say we were up by 20. I don't remember exactly how much it was. They called 11 fouls. That's 22 free throws plus a tech.
There was a span of 8 minutes. It was 8 minutes and some change where they called foul after foul after foul. They even got Ernie upset. Ernie never got upset about anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Ernie was upset, and it was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, really? This is how it's going to happen? And that was my thing also, was like, as a basketball coach, I don't care about wins. We care about wins and losses, but my thing is if we learn from our losses. That's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's hard to learn anything from that, other than
we
very
was undefeated. We could take a loss. That wasn't a big deal. It was the way we took a loss. You're not gonna demean us or demean me and call it. Everybody on our team was frustrated after the game, and it wasn't because of that one situation. It was how the game was called, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was my thing, is we're cheating the kids. That was my whole thing, plain and simple. Now, if I had it to take it back, of course I would, because I feel like I cheated you guys. That was my biggest thing also, was that I felt like I cheated you guys out of the experiences and the opportunities that we could have had.
Hey, thanks for watching there, guy. Click right over here if you want to see that episode in its entirety. Or you can click over here and subscribe to the channel. See all the other fun shit we do here. It's really up to you, guy.